Welcome back to Screenfish Radio. I am so glad that you're here to join us this week as we have returned to talk about another big return with The Mandalorian and Grogu, the return to the big screen for the Star Wars universe. And when you have a big title like that, you want big guests and heavy hitters. And I am so excited to have the leader of the rebellion, David Voigt from In the Seats. Welcome back, Dave.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve-O.
And of course, he is just filled with midichlorians. Nick Van Dinther of Bite Size Breakdown. Welcome, Nick.
That is true. That is what they know me for. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to talk about this title, and there's a lot to discuss with it. But before we do, gentlemen, my thought is we are really kicking off the summer. I know that some people would debate whether it's the first week of May, whether it's Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend, I think, traditionally has been the official kickoff of the summer films movie season. But with that in mind, I would like to talk about this summer and to see if there's anything you're interested in. And let's start. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about that's coming from are you going to hit the box office this summer season?
Yeah, I'll take an obvious one. Just because I think the franchise is batting 4 for 4. I think Toy Story 5 is something I'm really interested in. I think the idea of the inclusion of the movement for just in the modern day children's toys going from kids going and playing outside to these electronic things and how them replacing our actual toys would affect them if they have feelings, I think is a really smart way to tell this story. And they haven't let me down yet. So I'm pretty excited to see Toy Story 5 for sure.
I've said this before. I'm always very nervous when a new Toy Story movie comes out because the first three especially, I mean, they're incredible. That is an incredible trilogy. I think the fourth one is very good. A lot of people, there are people that disagree, but I think it's great. I think it's very good. It's just it's not quite the peak of the top of the first three, but yeah, I'm intrigued by that one as well.
Yeah, the thing about the Toy Story is because we hold it on such an upper echelon. I think if 4 came out as a standalone Pixar film, like something like Hoppers, I think we'd look on it a lot more fondly than when we're comparing it to what was one of the greatest animated films of all time to come before it with Toy Story 3. I think it was just such a high bar that that's why that didn't quite hit in the same way for people. But when you revisit it, I think it's one that still does really hold up.
This is a bit of a sidebar for that, but and I'm throwing this out there, Dave. You haven't said anything on this too, but are there in your mind trilogies? Does the Toy Story trilogy rank as one of the best trilogies of all time? Not the
No,
best, but in it. No?
no, no. I mean, I think just because they put it like again to have it's one of those things that they just pushed it too far. If they had stuck to three, three was such a cathartic sort of emotional moment that like if they had sort of it's like saying would The Godfather be the best trilogy of all time if there'd been a fourth one or a fifth one? And the more Toy Stories they had, I think, sort of devalues the quality of the trilogy, to be perfectly frank. And I mean, I'm a bit of a purist this way, but it's one of those things where it just doesn't quite click for me. But I mean, like I would say, I would put the quantifier that if they had stuck to three, that Toy Story would be sort of in that pantheon of best trilogies ever.
That's fair. That's fair. So your argument is that because they kept going, it's
Yeah,
lowering the
yeah.
value.
I mean, the more of anything you have, it kind of dilutes it, you know. If we had Back to the Future 7 with the first three being
Right.
special.
Oh
Right.
boy. And I think obviously none of us have seen the movie, but I do think without taking anything away from Toy Story 4, I think in terms of a script and a plot, this one makes a lot more sense for a continuation of the story than 4 does. And I think you could probably take out 4 realistically, and this could have been the concept for 4, and it would have made a lot more
I would
sense
agree with that. Yeah.
than the Bo Peep thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think 4 is actually good because it completes Woody's arc. And I hear in the that there's discussions of viewing this as the beginning of a new trilogy focusing on Jesse. And if that's the case, okay, 4 is sort of the misnomer, but I hear what you're saying. Like I still think I remember seeing Toy Story in the theater. I don't talk about all Toy Story, but Toy Story in the theater when I saw it the first time, I remember thinking the world had changed because that was the first kick at the can of CGI animation, and it was like this is we're not going back because there's something so special about it. But good pick, Nick. What about you, Dave?
Well, I'm going to show my age and sort of pick Disclosure Day with the one and only Mr. Steven Spielberg. Anything sci-fi, anything sort of thoughtful sci-fi. I mean, really, this does feel like a film that is sort of speaking to the better natures of us, a la sort of a Close Encounters, to really sort of give us sort of that idea of it's not necessarily about the aliens, but it's about sort of our reaction to the aliens, especially given everything going on in the world today. This definitely feels like it will be a relevant piece of cinema, as it were. And like I said, I mean, at this stage, anything Spielberg gives us that isn't sort of retelling his childhood, which wasn't a bad movie, but again, I prefer the other stuff. I'm all for. So Steven going back into sci-fi is definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Is it a secret sequel to Close Encounters in your mind?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't think we can answer that till we see it, right?
Of course. It would be interesting because it would be interesting to see how that progress. I don't know if that's real or not, but that is the rumor on the internet, of course, right?
It definitely feels like it's an emotional continuation of sort of some of those ideas.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is a secret sequel or if it's something similar to what The Nice Guys is to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where it's a
I would go with the
spiritual
latter.
sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a spiritual sequel, as they say.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you pick one thing you're excited about, like I think we're all on the same page with that one. And I think that like Spielberg, every time Spielberg makes a film now, I feel like, I don't know how much longer Spielberg's gonna be doing it, but he says he's never gonna stop. Scorsese's still making them, Spielberg's still making them.
Oh,
But
those two guys, like they will have to have someone finish their movies when they finally go because they'll be mid production on
yeah,
something.
yeah, you're not wrong. But the other thing, like Spielberg stuff lately, I think like has been actually really good.
Oh, it
Like
has been. Yeah.
his last 3 or 4 films have been a real return. There was a while there, I like Spielberg, but there was sort of a lull there for a little bit or hit and miss. But he's on a hot streak. What was it? A West Side Story, uh, uh, the video game one. What's the video game
Ready
one?
Player One.
Ready
Oh,
Player
Red Player
One,
One. Yeah.
and the Fablemans. I think are the last 3 he did. All of them were great. Um, but that's a good one. It's a good one.
Well, and
I
the thing that's cool about that is Ready Player One is the only sci-fi film he's done since, I guess technically if you want to include Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but like he really took a big break from the sci-fi
He
world
did.
when
Yeah,
he
he
came
did.
back for Ready Player One. So having a not video game tie-in, like a unique original story, and having him re-enter that world, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My excitement pick, if you will, is I've really been torn between that, especially since you two have made some great picks. but I'm trying to debate which one will be my. I think this is my excitement pick as opposed to my intrigued pick, and I'm really hoping that my intrigued pick shows up on your list as well. I'm gonna go with Spider-Man Brand New Day. And I'm gonna go with Spider-Man Brand New Day as as something I'm actually excited for because we're starting something different. And I mean, in some ways, Marvel, I feel like they're taking a big. This is a hard one. This is their number four, if you will. This is their Toy Story 4. You know, they're coming off of the biggest one of their trilogy, the home trilogy, trying to chart a new direction. Tom Holland is now a full-grown adult. I don't know if he's married or not, but you know, he's certainly he himself is fully adult, and they're starting a new believed to be starting a new trilogy. But the trailers so far I've seen from it are pretty fascinating, and I'm really sort of excited to see what the next chapter is for him. I mean, the next Spider-Man story, people have already built up in their mind that's going to be the biggest hit of the summer, but it might not be, but I'm very excited to see what they come up with.
Very
Thoughts
fair.
on
Yeah.
yeah, thoughts on
No,
Spider-Man?
no. I mean, it's you're right. Marvel hasn't quite mastered that fourth movie yet to sort of start the next phase of things that are happening. Like they've petered into different areas and things have happened, and then the sort of TV boom happened. This is their first sort of big spectacle. Sort of here's the next installment. Here's the next sort of evolution of this character, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, this is the first film in the MCU that feels like actually part of
Mm.
something new. I think the way you're going to integrate Frank Castle into this, and I'm curious how much Frank Castle it's going to be versus how much Punisher it's going to be. The Peter having his own like sheep detective style. I don't know. I'm the only one who knows what happened here, and I kind of have to live through living a life that I just remember. Well, seeing if he can find his way back to his friends and family and stuff like that. I think that's an interesting wrinkle that you have. So I think it's definitely going to do well. And Far From Home wasn't great, but I haven't seen a bad Holland Spider-Man film yet. So I think it's going to be an enjoyable watch at the very least.
And just as a sidebar, I mean, when Sheep Detectives finally completes its trilogy, that just may be the best film trilogy of all time. I'm just going to put that out there right
I
now.
think
So,
I like where you're going with that because Sheep Detectives is brilliant. And maybe we could talk about that. No, yeah, they've sort of stacked the deck with they've Spider-Man and with this one, you know, we've got Bruce Banner, we've got Frank Castle. Anyway, I'm excited. What about something you're intrigued by? Nick, let's start with you. Something that interests you because you're not sure where it's going.
I think there really has can only be one answer to this because it has the kind of Snyder cut feel to it, and that's Coyote versus Acme. And it is intriguing just for the sense of are people going to show up? Like all this talk about when it was canceled and when it was resurrected, like this is going to be an important thing, the success of this film, as to whether things like that can happen. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna, there's gonna be a resurrection of like the Batgirl film or something like that. But the fact that you can have this thing that was kind of dead on arrival, there was a groundswell of people talking, the cast and crew involved talking, wanting to bring this to theaters, it testing very well, apparently. I think it's really interesting to see if people are going to show up for this one.
I am so intrigued by that just for all the reasons you mentioned. Like and the trailer is actually good. Like it's a good trailer for its chaos. Um I love the fact that this is a movie. Even in the trailer, they're like the movie that Acme doesn't want you to see. Well, we all know who Acme is in this one, and here it is. Here it is. So man. Um, Dave, what about you?
well, I got one that actually, it's one that admittedly I've actually already seen. that I got to see back at TIFF, and it's The Furious, which is another sort of Pacific Rim, Hong Kong, Chinese, Thai, really sort of wall to wall kind of action film. And I'm curious to see just how the response is for North American audiences, because I mean, generally with these films, it either gets super adopted and turns into this cult thing and does a lot of great business, which spawns other releases to get to North American audiences, or it just kind of peters out and dies. It's going to go one way or the other, and I'm kind of curious to see where it goes. I'm certainly hoping it's a hit because obviously it's a fantastic and really, really fun ride that I want more and more audiences to see, just to see sort of the in-camera violence action spectacle that comes out of Thailand, Hong Kong, really the fantastic cinema from the Pacific Rim that we get to see sort of everywhere now, thanks to not just theatrical, but streaming and everything else that we get as well.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be like just chaotically good. Like
It is wall to wall. It is wall to
yeah,
wall. I've
you've
loved
seen
it.
it. You've seen it, eh?
Yeah, I saw
I
it at
haven't seen
TIFF
it.
last year. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that there were two films coming out of TIFF that people were super high on. One was The Furious, and the other one was Obsession. After seeing it, I wasn't as high on Obsession as everyone else seems to be, but The Furious is something I've been eagerly anticipating getting to check out. And even just like the clips that they've shown online, that the studios released of it online, I think it looks like a balls to the wall action film that should
Yeah.
definitely be a fun time.
Is it fast? No? No?
I'm not dignifying that with a response.
It's like dead air. Just this moment of silence
You're
in
better
the
than that.
podcast.
You're better than that.
I don't think I am. I, I don't think.
I don't know much about it, but I do believe that Vin Diesel does not make an appearance.
I will confirm that. I will confirm that.
There you go.
Spoilers. um. Okay. So I have to say that in terms of an intrigued film, and again, this may seem like this. I went back and forth on this, but I really am more intrigued on this one than excited. Is the Odyssey? Because first of all, it doesn't like I love the Odyssey. I read it in university. You know, I've seen iterations of it over the years. I don't think you're going to get a better one than Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But in all honesty, like this doesn't feel like a Christopher Nolan movie, other than the fact that they play with time. And I say that because most of his movies don't deal with um, ethereal magic and monsters. You know, you could make the argument that everything has monsters in it, but it's Nolan's very grounded in his take on so many things. So for the Odyssey, it feels like a real like, well, I got my Oscar now. Let's take a big swing because I've always loved this book, which is fine. I don't I know everybody's excited with it for it because it's Nolan's his own brand. But I'm more intrigued because I don't know what an Odyssey made by Christopher Nolan looks like. I'm hoping it's not like a Gods and Kings version that which I know is about not the Odyssey, that's a biblical story, but waters down anything sort of mysterious. I don't think it's
Well, all
going
we know
to
for
be.
sure is Elon Musk is staying home that weekend. So
It's true. Elon can, you can have stay at home, enjoy your weekend, but no, I'm genuinely intrigued. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? On the Odyssey?
Um, I love the story. I think it's a great story. It's always been one of my favorite like fables. Um, it is a weird pick for Christopher Nolan, and as interesting as a recreation of the story of the Odyssey is, the one thing about Nolan, especially with this film in particular, is it feels like I don't want to say he's distracting you, but he puts together this very notable cast that will bring you to the theater, and they aren't always in they aren't always the best choice for the film he's trying to tell. Like the focus feels more on the name value than the performances. And I feel like in a story like The Odyssey, like we just had one. It was either the last year or the year before with Ray Fiennes, where he told the story of the Odyssey, and I feel like this could be one of those films where, as well as Nolan does telling the fantastical elements, you're going to be painfully aware that you're watching Matt Damon, that you're watching Tom Holland, that you're watching Robert Pattinson, and it's going to kind of remove yourself from this story. And that's my only hesitancy about it, is that he's overstacked this cast.
Well, and I mean, that is the problem that's kind of inherent with the swords and sandal epic that all sort of big filmmakers want to make. At some point, you can't unsee sort of the actors that are in them. Because I mean, Ridley has been guilty of this. Wolfgang Peterson with Troy. I mean, it's there are several examples. It's going to be a great movie, but will it be great to the point where we're putting it like it's? I have a feeling this is going to be very comparable to something like One Battle After Another. And bear with me on this. It's still going to be a great movie, but are we going to be putting it in the upper echelon of Nolan's canon? Probably not. It'll probably be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if it's one of those movies. Like, I'm sure it's going to wow us. Like, this is an
Yeah.
IMAX. Yeah, like we're gonna be wowed, but
I mean,
is it?
can Nolan do a bad movie? Probably not.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. This is why it's an intriguing pick to me because I don't know where it's gonna land on this thing, and I know people are excited about it, saying it's the movie of the summer, and then I'm realizing, I'm like, is it because it's just because it's Nolan? It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
no one here was saying we need an Odyssey. I like no, I don't think so. Like you said, we get them all the time. It feels like in different iterations and whatnot. But I am intrigued. I'm intrigued. Okay, what about your bomb pick, if you will, to coin a phrase, but you're one that you're just like I don't need this.
All right. Well, I'll start with this one, just because, and I mean, this is the theme that we're seeing more and more, and we'll probably one we'll be talking about later on. But Moana live action. Why?
Oh,
Why? Why? Like, yes, it made a lot of money. Yes, it's a familiar IP. It's The Rock. It'll speak to little girls. It'll speak to different cultures. But why? It's not a movie we needed, and I'm sure it'll do fine. But it's just why.
yeah.
It's the movie this summer that feels to me like it's like, why do you exist?
It's an interesting one because like this is one of their most recent ones that they've done. I think Lilo and Stitch was still 2003, and then Moana was
Right.
like 10 years ago.
There was separation. Yeah.
There was separation. Like if this was 2036, of course, by then The Rock would be in his late 60s, and
Yeah.
which may be why they're doing it now,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Possibly. Yeah.
But it is interesting that way, that it does feel a little soon. And you just had Moana 2. Was it last year? Last year, Moana 2?
2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago.
And I mean, hey, in all fairness, even if they had waited to 2036, get Roman to plan.
Oh, that's a hot button topic right there. Oh boy. Oh,
Not saying Samoans are interchangeable, but hey, get Roman to play him. He's a bit younger. It would.
could
Not that
Roman
I'm saying Dwayne can sing, but I think Roman would be worse.
That's a fair assessment. Yeah. And for
Uh,
those not wondering who Roman is, Roman Reigns, current WWE champion. But yes,
that's man, it's interesting because I feel it's like with Mufasa, and again, I understand different animated voice work, get it.
yeah, yeah,
But the one thing that it was nice to see in the live action recreation of the Lion King was that James Earl Jones was still the voice of Mufasa.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Rock may be Dwayne Johnson may be that guy in this film. I don't. Anyway, good one, Nick. What about you? Your bomb pick, if you will, or your least interested.
Okay, I have a weird take on this one, and it is just because I don't think this particular director has hit in a while, and when he has hit, it's not quite the same level of what I expect, especially now in a time where we're at with elevated horror. Like we talk about Obsession, even if I'm not as high on it, it's still a good movie. This summer, you have things like the Insidious franchise that's getting new films. You have things like the end of Oak Street, which is very interesting as to if that's going to lean into the horror. And to me, the one that's falling behind is the Ice Cream Man. I don't think I want Eli Roth to make films anymore. I just I just don't. I saw the trailer. It doesn't really excite me that much. It just feels like going back to the old style of horror, like almost like a Terrifier type thing, where it's a step below what you're currently getting in theaters. And yeah, he like horrible Borderlands movie, the Bruce Willis Death Wish remake, just not enjoyable content to watch at the movies, and also not leaning into camp the way I think that horror could more. It just feels like kind of an excuse to have some gory scenes, and I think a lot of people are looking at horror as a lot more than that nowadays.
I will say I think they picked a solid release date, if that's any statement on the film at all, because it does feel like a horror movie that could steal some viewers at a time when things are starting to slow down. Because I think it's that long weekend in August, um, and it's like,
Yeah, it's that first weekend because it'll be the second weekend of Spider-Man, and well, there'll be one movie that local audiences will want to see, but other than that, it's like Super Troopers.
right.
Yeah, it's a quiet weekend, so it's definitely one where it can sort of win the day because Matt Johnson's follow-up is not necessarily gonna be competing with Spider-Man anytime soon with Tony. So, it's just one of those things that's uh yeah, it's the right weekend. It definitely is the right weekend for that movie.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's interesting, that because I hear you. There's not a lot of, well, there's been no buzz because all the big ones are taking up all the buzz. But I haven't seen anything that got me excited for Ice Cream Man. But who knows?
Well, and it's still early too. I mean,
Still early.
schedules can change at a drop of a hat these days, so who knows?
Yeah. I'm torn on my online here because I think the obvious one, and it's maybe it's too obvious. I got an obvious one and a controversial one. I'm gonna go with the controversial one. My obvious one would have been Minions and Monsters, which is a trailer that actually made me yawn. Is sort of in the theater, like Dave is now, just because I mentioned it. But I'm gonna take some flack for this. I'm not interested in the new Matt Johnson movie. And it's because, yeah, I know. I see you there, Dave. But no, in all seriousness, it just like, I'm not I listen, I think Matt Johnson can make a great movie. I know he can. We've seen him make a couple of them. I really love Blackberry, and of course there's Nirvana, and I'm not saying I don't want Nirvana too. That's not what I want. But just from what I've seen so far, the Anthony Bourdain movie isn't one that I'm hyped on. I know a lot of people are hyped on it. Matt Johnson is becoming his own brand, especially in these circles. I just don't know. And because of the release date, and it could be because I mean, it's not a small movie, but it's not a major. I gotta be careful I say this, but it
Well,
doesn't
and
feel
I
like a
mean,
major
it's
player.
A24 in the States, but it's obviously lesser. And it's one of those
Right.
things where does this movie go more Nirvana or some of his earlier work, or does it go more Blackberry? Because I mean, and again, I'm with you. Like, I don't discount that Matt is a very talented filmmaker that I want to see him do more films because he
100%.
deserves to. But I almost equate it to, and I mean, this is a bad comparison, but I'm going to use it. Woody Allen, like, stop acting in your own movies.
Fair.
Stop it.
And but yeah, and I'm not even like, It's funny. I feel bad saying this because I think I use the term bomb pick. I don't think of this as a bomb, and I don't think this is. It's just not one that's not on my radar, but I know it's on everyone else's radar, and I'm just sort of like, okay,
But again, it is that early August slot. It is that end of the summer slot. So
right,
it typically is the period where either something that could be awards worthy gets put, or something that will just be interesting and then forgotten about by October. Like it's one of those nebulous time periods where it could go either way.
yeah,
Even taking out the Matt Johnson of it all, like Anthony Bourdain is someone a lot of people have reverence for. I'm not one of those people. I'm quite inundated when it comes to Anthony Bourdain, so I know that there are it's weird to say diehard fans, but people who very well know his story and are very interested in what comes with him, especially in the trailer so far. They haven't done anything to make me a non-follower interested in his story. It just feels like, like any generic chef story. And I don't think it's going to end up being that. I don't think Matt Johnson has the ability to tell a generic, somewhat boring story. Uh, I think there will be swings within it, and they may or may not work. But I think that the marketing in this could really use a boost for making you care about the story of especially young Anthony Bourdain.
yeah. I mean, I like look. I think it's Dominic Sessa that's playing him, isn't it? Sessa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sessa's phenomenal, and I think Matt Johnson can make it. I agree with you, Nick. I don't think Matt Johnson's going to just do a stoic by the numbers film. He might, but I don't think he will. But it's just like when I look at the summer, I'm like, well, fine, okay, that's what we're getting. In my mind, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm excited. I hope I come out of there saying I did not see that coming. But that's just where I'm at. So
Well, and something else to consider is that just given the nature of the project, this could very well be the first project that he was probably hired onto rather
mm,
than sort of developed and birthed himself. So it'll
right,
be interesting to see how he does with that.
that's true too.
And I think compared to our other two bomb picks, I don't want to speak for your guys' opinion on Ice Cream Man, but I think this is the one that we're hoping to be wrong about. Like we want to see Tony do well. We want to see Matt Johnson do well, and like it would be cool if this turns out to be a unique kind of biopic take. But there's nothing that's been shown thus far to give you that kind of intrigue in it. So I think that's why it falls where it does.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to be wrong on this. I hope I am. It just doesn't. It's just. I know people that are really excited. It's just not on my radar right now. Um, well, this was fun. This is good. I mean, certainly there's a lot of other films that could go either way, but we just have our own limited takes. But certainly, there is.
It is crazy that we went through all of this and none of us mentioned Masters of the Universe, which it just does feel like it deserves some mention. Like the idea that this film is getting like an expensive theatrical release, that some of the early word, you take that with a grain of salt, is not as negative as it felt like it was going to be. Not to have a bomb pick honorable mention, but it just felt like it deserves some kind of
I showed up.
acknowledgement here.
Well, it's a funny one because I feel like it's a title that on paper, I don't know if anybody's really excited. Well, I mean, people aren't. Maybe the hype is starting to build for it now, but like when I saw it, I went, "Oh yeah." I don't know who else is going to see it, but I'd like to see it. But it's not like this is the movie I can't wait to see. But it's also not the movie that I wish that I'm not interested in either. Like it's sort of like in that middle space.
Well, there's a few movies in that middle space this year. I mean, even from smaller stuff like we're getting the Nicholas Refn in the end of July,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of curious about Death of Robin Hood. Um, Perversely, I want to see Lily James climbing up along the side of a cliff in the Cliffhanger remake. There isn't. I think the overarching thing of this, not only the summer of the year, is it's not necessarily about we're not chasing movies. It almost feels like we're chasing certain people
Mm.
because we're very much. I mean, at least I can. You guys can speak on this more if you want, but it feels, as much as we all joke about sort of the McConaissance from a few years ago, we're in the middle of the Hathaway assance, as it were, given how many things she has been in and will be in by the end of the year. It's gonna be sort of that Anne Hathaway dominated year, and there's gonna be a couple other people I think will be sort of in that conversation as well. Probably Tom Holland, just because he's got the Odyssey and Spider-Man, and then once the end of the year rolls around with Avengers and Dune and all that other sort of stuff, I got a feeling this will be more of a year where we focus on the people as opposed to the movie.
Hmm, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Anne Hathaway, I know she took some time off, but like she's got like four this year. Four. Zendaya has three this year. Tom Holland has two in 2 weeks. Like it's um that's wild. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I mean, we've been talking about big movies, and I mean, how can you not talk about the Star Wars universe in that sense? But maybe you can with The Mandalorian and Grogu. I want to hear what you think about it. But for those of you who are unaware, The Mandalorian and Grogu reintroduces us to Din Djarin and his miniature Jedi in waiting, Grogu, as they are doing jobs around the universe. Living at a time when the Empire has fallen, the duo have teamed with the New Republic to hunt down Imperial warlords who still believe in the mantra of the Empire. But things become complicated when they are asked to find Rada the Hutt, the kidnapped son of the now deceased Jabba the Hutt. Though the duo are reluctant to take the job, they acquiesce, placing them in the midst of a situation they want nothing to do with, but that they also can't ignore. And as always, I haven't said this in a while. This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Um, Felt good. Gentlemen, what'd you think of The Mandalorian and Grogu? Gut
Eh,
reactions. What was that?
it's fine. It's basically a TV. It's basically a big screen adaptation of a television show. That's pretty much what it is. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing right with it either. This this basically confirms that sort of the lore and the legacy of Star Wars on the big screen has been shrunk, which is just the way it is now. And I mean, I think I'd mentioned this to you, Steve, sort of as we were coming out of that screening. It's a blockbuster that forgot to be an event.
I
It's a
like
big
that.
movie. It's a perfectly cromulent piece of popcorn cinema that people can go and watch and enjoy, but it does not have the vitality that we are used to from the Star Wars franchise on the big screen. Plain and simple.
But is there something refreshing about that, or does that actually lower the quality for you? Because that's interesting that you say that. Like we have criticized in the past, not
It
necessarily.
doesn't lower the quality, it lowers the emotional connection to it.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting because I'm not sure I agree with you there. But before we come, I won't come to that. But Nick, what did you think? What did you think? Let's get you in here.
I Yeah, I think the emotional connection was lacking. This is a film that the more I've thought about it, the worse I've looked upon it. Uh, to the point that like my rating for my review has bounced back and forth was whether it was going to be as low as a two or whether it was out of five, or whether it was going to be a little bit higher, and then how much my Star Wars nostalgia played a part. But I think what I kind of came down to is always a huge Star Wars fan. I can find redeeming qualities about everything from the prequels to Rise of Skywalker. And for this one, I just people use the word nostalgia in like a dirty way that it equals cheap nostalgia, but you can just have genuine, not forced upon nostalgia. And this didn't have that for me. It's not that it didn't feel like a Star Wars movie, but it didn't like activate my Star Wars fandom. It didn't like I remember even like when the sequel trilogy came out like a long time ago, you get like a little chill like down your like it meant something, right? And this one it just kind of happened, and I'll push back on Dave a little bit that it's not it would be okay if it was like a good episode of The Mandalorian. It's kind of a filler episode of The Mandalorian. Like it's not one of the top exciting episodes. It's just kind of an episode that's there.
Yeah.
And I think if it was something that was peak Mando, um, I think you could have done something with it, but it doesn't. It just kind of exists.
And I mean, that's the hard thing, especially in our jobs as critics. I mean, when we look back at something like this, when we just go, it's fine. Isn't that the worst thing that you have to write up and talk about when you see a movie and you're just going, it's okay. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing overt that I can say is wrong with the damn thing because there's not. But it's just again, it's not one of those movies that I guess speaks to sort of the larger nature of I guess what we're used to as blockbusters in the modern age, and especially when it comes to Star Wars. I mean, I think I joked about this on the way into the screening. It's like it's the big screen adaptation of my third favorite Star Wars show. Had this been an Andor movie, we'd be a lot more invested because we just got more invested in Andor and in the characters and in the story. In here in Mandalorian and Grogu, it was what cute things will Grogu do, and our lead actor, who's in 90% of the movie, we can never see his face. So it's hard to sort of get really sort of emotionally tied up in sort of the A to B to the C of it all.
I think it's very sweet that you gave him credit for being in 90% of the movie because I don't think I think he did a week on set. No, I'm kidding. In a lot of ways I agree with you guys. I really do. Like this is, but I see things a little differently, especially in terms of the emotional connection. I do think that there may be some missteps here, which is I think you made a great point, Dave, when you said we're more invested in Andor, and that doesn't mean that I wanted an Andor movie, but it means that it's been like 3 or 4 years since we had a season of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, there's that. That is also a problem. Yeah.
So there's no anticipation. I mean, people love Baby Yoda, sorry, Grogu and Mandalorian. People love them as characters now, but it's not like we were building to this. You know what I mean? If they'd had a fourth season and then mind you, if they'd
Yeah.
had a fourth
No, that's
season,
very valid.
um, and I also would point out that I think that this particular film is a very strange one to be the reintroduction of Star Wars on the big screen for all the reasons you guys just mentioned. Because this franchise has been built on nostalgia and hype. Varying leads. If it's a new trilogy, it's hype. If it's the old, if it's a prequel, it's on nostalgia. Back and forth, and they all feel very, very big. I feel like this would be the equivalent of, Marvel waiting, near, 7 years after Endgame and coming back with an A24 film. This is their reintroduction to the
Yeah.
world.
And I mean, the thing is, the Star Wars universe is already so well established that we're kind of stuck venturing into new stories because obviously Andor spins off of Rogue One, which we know is that time period between 3 and 4. Even something like the Obi-Wan miniseries, we have a connection to it because there's thread. This is like Mando and everything that's happened in the Mandalorian sort of quote unquote universe has been post six, pre seven, if my timeline is correct.
Yeah,
And that
this
is
is
a very big kind of nebulous gap that we're just not all very comfortable with.
well, that's the interesting thing about this is technically is the first cinematic sequel we've had to Return of the Jedi. I mean, we're talking about life post Jabba. The Imperial forces
How
are on the
dare you? How
fringes.
dare you ignore the Ewok TV movies? But that's a story for another day.
I think they were prequels. Weren't they supposed to be before?
I don't even remember.
Those were big ones. My wife loved those growing up. I didn't have the the love of them that she did, but those ones she loved. Um, but no, I think this is the first time we've really in a theater. I mean, certainly on TV we've done it a lot. In a theater, addressed the events of Return of the Jedi rather than just start a new Star Wars trilogy. It's interesting. However,
But even then, it's barely addressed. It's like, oh yeah, all this happens,
that's true.
and then oh, Jabba had a son. Oh, that's nice.
Who's an awesome character, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
I loved that story. Was fantastic. Rod of the Hutt, I thought was fascinating. Um,
So this is kind of one of my big issues with the film. Is I'm big on character development. So I like to look at a film and see where we start and where we end. And to me, the only character development we got was Rod of the Hutt. I think Grogu is exactly where he started, where he ends. I think Mando is exactly where he started, where he ends. Arguably, neither of them even need to be in this. Like, it could have just been a bounty hunter and Rada. Like, it's I don't want to say it feels cheap, but that's a word I keep coming to in my head. It does. It feels kind of cheap as to we just wanted to push something out into theaters. And I really hate that decision. I think the Gosling film should have been the return to theaters. Um, I really don't like that this is titled Star Wars: The Mandalorian and Grogu and not a Star Wars story, so that they're trying to like put it into that trilogy thing when you've made this side story kind of title structure. I just yeah, like it just kind of happens. I don't know where those two characters go from here, which I've mentioned to you after the screening, Steve. And I don't know what growth, what happened. And I think I'm maybe a little bit done with Baby Yoda being a baby. It's kind of like Baby Groot, but like eventually we wanted him to grow up. We were like, okay, he dances in a pot. That's great. But we wanted something more from him. And that's how kind of Grogu's feeling for me a little bit.
I would disagree that there was not character growth in them. I know you could make the argument that Mando sort of starts and finishes in sort of the same way. I'm not sure he does. And this is where I actually think I came out of it like the first half of this film, I thought this is fun. I don't know why we're here. The second half, I felt completely justified the first half. And I'm not saying like this is the best Star Wars film ever made. I'm not going to do that. But I also like kind of appreciate the fact that they invested so much in its themes and characters. I felt the opposite of you, Nick, because like I think that half hour that we spend with Grogu is the best half hour of the movie. And it's not because he's so cute. It's because my gosh, a lot happens there. Like this is very much a film about Grogu growing up, even though he's still adorable. And I see what you're saying about him being still being cute, but I thought they gave him quite a story and this is very much a film about like I want to hear what your thoughts on this. This is very much a film about dealing with dads.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would agree with you on that, Steve. But I mean, at the same time, I got to push back a little bit, just in terms of development of characters.
Sure.
We had Mando, we had Grogu, who had growth. We had Rada, who had some sort of development in lines. Other than Sigourney as a sarcastic wing commander, and for some reason Martin Scorsese taking voice work from an actor for God knows why. What other actual characters or people acting are there in this movie? It was so threadbare with people sort of with no one else sort of in the orbit of our primary characters. It was a little it felt weird.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. Like there aren't it's almost a three-person movie, even though you've got all these
Yeah,
villains. And I do agree, and this is a conversation I think we had when it was over, that the idea of the Imperial, I mean, I get why they had him in there, but that raid on the Imperial, it did feel disjointed from the larger story, which was focusing on the Hutts, um, and
it
whatnot.
was a great sequence, but it was just there to be there.
Yeah.
It was there to reestablish, okay, this is what the Mandalorian does.
Um, yeah.
Which is kind of how again, it was really cool to see the AT-AT sequence on the big screen. But it did just feel like we made this just to give you an IMAX AT-AT sequence. Like, it didn't really feel like it was that crucial to the story. And that's what Steve was saying at the beginning. Like, it was fun. I was watching the first half of the film, but I was like, why is this happening? And I do think that the strongest part of the film is when Grogu takes over. I just think it's the strongest part of what is a disappointing film.
Yeah.
So what in your mind would, if you're going to use the word disappointing, what is it missing? Because this feels like a very much a deliberate attempt to address the people that felt, oh no, we're getting another Death Star, or oh, why does it always have to be the Skywalkers? This felt like it was a Star Wars movie for people that don't love Star Wars. What's it missing?
I think part of what it's missing and part of what made The Mandalorian as a TV show really work. I know I said that this was like a filler episode of The Mandalorian, but tonally, it's actually a lot more like a filler episode of Clone Wars. It lost the kind of Western vibes of The Mandalorian, which is what I think really set it apart as a TV show. And look, I have been on this train since I saw it. I have felt stronger about this opinion. I know you don't agree with me, Steve, and many probably won't. I think when you watch the structure of this movie, they gave you a perfect reason to have character development and stuff like that by letting Mando die. I think him dying in this film and Grogu not being able to save him, and if you want to make Rhoda a character moving forward and pair him up with Grogu, you know, you don't really have a place for Mando to go other than this, aside from showing up and being a background character, but he's not going to be like your lead guy anymore. I don't really know what the reason for the character is anymore. And I think that's what you could change it. And even with you saying it's a story of fathers and sons, I feel like I got that stronger in the show. Like when Mando had to make the choice to give up Grogu to Luke and things like that, I got that parental feeling a lot stronger. And this was more just Grogu witnessing death of someone he cared about for the first time. But it didn't hit in the same way that father son story has been done with those two in the TV shows, where I think it landed a little stronger.
And to your point, Nick, I mean, in the show, he was the anti-hero. He was the man with no name. He was Clint Eastwood. You liked him, but you were not necessarily certain about him.
Mm-hmm.
This is trying to turn him into sort of the reluctant hero. Even at the end of the movie with Sigourney going, "Oh, I'm just a guy for hire." It's like, yeah, sure. Uh-huh. This is them trying to turn Mando into the action hero, which didn't quite work.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about that before, Nick, when you talked about killing him off, I think emotionally it would have hit different. I do think it would have created the Boba Fett problem, which they, you know, and that's just a franchise issue because once they killed Boba Fett became one of the most beloved characters of all time, and Disney had to figure out what to do with that. You know, how do you revive him without ruining what you've already built and all this stuff? So it's like you kill off Mando, you can't use him again.
I think the difference there is you've kind of got a beginning to end arc for Mando. Like your argument is what has his purpose been in this universe, in the overarching Star Wars universe? His purpose has been to be that parental guide for Grogu. He takes him to the situation with Luke and the idea of him training to be a Jedi and things like that. And he's really just there as a quote unquote father figure right now. You can argue that his next step is setting Grogu off on his own, like any father would do, and having him do that with his death. I think it's a strong way to end the character where he may be beloved, but I don't think people are clamoring for him to come back in the same way because you have some closure in the death of that character. Where someone like Boba Fett was a relatively unimportant character in the original trilogy that they made a much more important character in the prequels that fans grasped onto because of what could have been. We've seen what Mando could have been, and he's been that. And that's where I wonder what story is left to tell with him and whether it was better to end him here. And also, his death gives this movie as a cinematic feature a lot more weight than that filler episode feel that I spoke about.
No, I see the point in that. And I will say too, and maybe this is just because it's where I'm at personally, the idea to me now that Grogu, even as an infant, is more of a teenager in some ways. Like this movie sets him up for maturity in a way that we haven't seen before, where he's taking responsibility. And the dad is sitting there going, or like Mando, I should say, is sitting there saying, "What am I leaving behind?" And then us seeing, like, I don't think the relationship has changed. Now, yes, he's a little smaller. If he was aged up a bit, he might not be as cute. You got to market him. But I do think that the relationship is very much like, oh, I'm not going to be here forever. You're going to long outlive me. What am I leaving behind in you? And that's what you see in Rada the Hutt. And I think I think what you see in Rada is the damage that's done with a dad that didn't care, you know? So it's interesting. I hear what you're saying. Like if they killed him off, you're right. Cinematically, it would be like, bam, oh my gosh, and all of a sudden it's this big thing. But I really kind of liked that aspect that, that half hour where Grogu is taking care of him. Um, that's a life shift in their relationship. Even though at the end, I know it's sort of like, okay, well, you can drive. And it's a little weird. It'd be weirder. It would be less weird if he didn't look like a toddler. But there is a definite change I felt in their relationship. And did it justify the big screen treatment? You could have done it in season 4. I admit that you could have done a season 4 of Mandalorian and had the same sort of thing. But I did find it interesting. Like that sort of made me fall in love with the film in a way that a Star Wars film hasn't before because the emphasis was less on spectacle. I don't know. It's interesting.
And also to speak to both of your points, I mean, like Rada has not been established yet. And I mean, they're not going to kill off the Mandalorian until there's someone sort of viable to replace him, because it's not going to work just as the Grogu movie. But if this is setting up either another movie or another season to eventually another movie, then you kill off the Mandalorian. That's where that payoff could come. It definitely just felt like while they were teasing it, it would have been way too soon to do it, especially for like a $200 million movie that they're releasing in Memorial Day weekend.
I felt like Favreau's going through some stuff. That's how I felt. Um, is Star Wars Marvel?
No,
Why not?
because Star Wars, we're so conditioned it being a closed loop with the Skywalker saga that as it tries to jet out into other territories, it still feels foreign and we're not necessarily comfortable with it. Whereas Marvel has already sort of established this multi-tentacled, grand sweeping world that they can go off into any sort of tangent that they want and we'll buy into it.
But would
In
And
that
Star
so
Wars, we're breaking the circle.
like
In Marvel, it's everywhere.
can Star Wars be that?
Possibly, but it's going to take a lot of time.
I was going to say, and I know Kathleen Kennedy is not in charge anymore, but the big difference between Star Wars and Marvel is Marvel had a plan. And Star Wars has felt for a long time like it didn't, whether it was J.J. Abrams and then we go into the Rian Johnson Last Jedi, which felt very disjointed, going back to J.J. with Rise of Skywalker, which felt like a sequel to Force Awakens that was missing something in between. It just felt very discombobulated. But it's never felt like it really had a plan. And regardless of what you want to say about the MCU, they've had their issues, obviously, everything that happened with Jonathan Majors and Chadwick Boseman's death and things like that. But there has been a defined plan that they were setting up. and they may have had to divert it a little bit, but they've been working within a plan. Star Wars just feels a little bit directionless in that they're just going off into different branches and kind of throwing a lot of stuff to see what sticks, whether it's something like the Skeleton Crew, which some people love, some people hate, something like the Acolyte, going back to nostalgia with the Obi-Wan series. There's just all these different little branches, but it doesn't feel like there's a destined plan as to what Star Wars is going forward.
See, I think you're right on that. I think that Marvel's plan was always to keep things broader. And I don't think yeah, I think you're right. I don't think Star Wars had a plan to do it this way. But I would say that once Disney took over, I think they tried because you got these Star Wars stories. Now, again, though, Rogue One fits very neatly into that 9 chapters. Solo is underrated, but it still sort of slides in there, and it's still based on the 9 chapters. I think Star Wars. I think you're right, Dave. I don't think Star Wars has had the chance to be a world, and I think everybody's trying, but I also think Star Wars changes with its time. Like the original trilogy is very 70s and 80s,
Yeah.
focused on the depth of spirituality of the era. The prequel trilogies tries to make the Force scientific, which is a very late 90s, early 2000s mindset. And then we came back with the new trilogy. They sort of tried to bring back the Force, and there was some a little bit of pushback. So the Mandalorian becomes the big hit where they just ignore it completely. I mean, Grogu may have the Force, but it's not like nobody even uses the word. Um, so it is something to me that I think is very different. Like it's a very different type of world, which is Marvel just about people that are more like you and I that get
But again, you
powers.
also even with Marvel, it's not necessarily about the people, it's about sort of the idea of the character. We're not necessarily invested in Steve Rogers, we're invested in the idea of Captain America. We're not invested
Mm.
in T'Challa, we're invested in the idea of the Black Panther. We're invested in the idea of someone being Iron Man. They have characters that can change actors and still get the same idea across. Whereas in Star Wars, it's like, you can't have, well, that guy's Obi-Wan Kenobi now. It's like, well, no, it's not. He's somebody else. That
That's
guy's Darth Vader
interesting.
now. No, he's not. He's somebody else.
And kind of going off what Dave was saying as well is, yeah, Marvel's very character focused in that sense, but whether it's their alter ego or the character in itself, the strongest part of Star Wars, like when you take it out of the movies and just Star Wars as its entirety, has been the world building in this thing is tremendous. Stuff we've never seen in theaters, whether it's the expanded encyclopedias, whatever. Like, it is so elaborate, and they don't take as much advantage of that. And I think that they've done a really good job introducing new characters. I'll give them that credit. I think they did that with the sequels trilogy. I think they did that with the TV shows. Um, but they need to take better advantage of this vast world that they've created instead of it just being like, I'm not a big Star Trek fan, but like if every Star Trek episode took place on Tatooine, like that would be, you're not taking advantage of this vast universe that you have to explore. And Star Wars sometimes gets itself locked into like this bit of a bubble too much when there's so much more lore.
I wonder too if gaps have something to play with this because, for example, like you had nearly 20 years or 15, 16 years between the first trilogy, second trilogy, because they were never going to happen. And then you had another 10 years between the sequel trilogy and or between the sequel trilogy and the prequels. People are used to Star Wars trilogies, and I'm not saying that that's the way to do it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I wonder if that plays into that mindset. Whereas Marvel has given us such an onslaught we're almost 20 years into this thing now, with Marvel, which is crazy to think. People sort of understand how it works in some ways. I might be overshooting it or overthinking it when I say that, but like I always love Star Wars, and there are some I like, some films I like, some I don't, but I see what they're trying to break free of the mold that they'd already set for themselves, and I respect that. Um,
But would a better way of breaking free of that mold be building off of nine and sort of referencing everything that happened past as sort of past and then reestablishing new characters and be like, oh, well, this happened 50 years ago, and then look at this lightsaber we found in the dust, and oh, but there's this hidden text which is going to lead to the rise of this, and blah, 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 rather than trying to fill in the gaps in the circle that have kind of already been made. Because right now, especially with Star Wars, we know we're in the Skywalker bubble. For Star Wars to really work and evolve, that bubble has to be broken, and they have to sort of establish things that will happen outside of that Skywalker bubble and sort of build it back up from the ground up.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that the issue with Star Wars, like you've got your Ryan Gosling movie coming up, which obviously is a big name attached. People are excited about that, but like in terms of the content that they've put out, like people are interested in the continuation of Daisy Ridley and John Boyega's story as Finn and Rey, and at least that story makes sense to tell. I think that there's only two places you can go with Star Wars that make sense, and I don't think you need to worry about filling in these gaps. And it is either go way forward or way back. Tell me the origin story. Yeah. Tell me the origin story of the Jedi. Like, there is so much there you can do that Skywalker won't be a thought if you want to get away from that. And if you want to tell this Skywalker name as almost this like biblical creature that it like stands for hope, kind of like what Superman does, how it stands for hope, and Rey has taken on the name. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff you could do with a continuation there as to what the Skywalker name now means, now that she's just kind of taken it as her own. And then I think you have a Game of Thrones style origin story of the Jedi and the Republic and the Jedi Knights and the Sith. And I think there's a lot of story there that you can tell, that even the prequel trilogy, we're talking about going way before that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested in the whole birth of the Jedi thing. I think if you do that long, though, my concern is that you're still going to get trapped because people think because of the nine are so established, you're going to have to know you're in a certain place, even if you do it thousands of years before. I don't know.
But I mean, even then, like there's ways to just. I mean, you can add little nuggets and little, you can tell the story of Darth Plagueis and this, that, or the other. But going prequel with it would definitely breathe some life back into sort of the idea of it being a grander Star Wars movie. Like you said, either that or we need Rey on her deathbed going, "You're a Skywalker now," and then sort of do the evolution of that going forward,
That's fair.
Now that we have all seen this film, when we're talking about its, middling and everything, where do we rank The Mandalorian and Grogu in terms of Star Wars theatrical releases?
In terms of favorites? This is a good question.
In terms of your favorites, like, where do you rank it?
I think we'd all agree it's better than Empire Strikes Back. I think that's. Am I saying that wrong? No. That's a good question, Dave. What do you think?
4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 3, 9, 8, Mando 2. I'd put it pretty close to the bottom.
I'm appalled
I did
that you
not
put
hate
9
Last
above
Jedi,
8.
but it's
Nick?
It's in that territory.
Yeah.
If we're including the animated Clone Wars movie, I obviously have that last. And then I have Mando right above that at the second last. Because I think my issue with it is, while there's flawed
Attack of the Clones.
Well, this is my thing.
An hour of them running through the fields and falling in love. I don't need.
So this is my pushback on that, at least for me personally, is when I remember this film, when I think back on this film, there doesn't quite seem to be moments that I can take out and want to revisit and want to have in my Star Wars lore. Whereas like something like Attack of the Clones, I really liked everything they did with Obi-Wan and Django. And like those are the things that stick
Yeah,
out for
yeah.
me about that film. And there's nothing like that in Mando. Rise of Skywalker, I really like the goodbye that they give Luke and Leia. Unfortunately, Han's not part of it, but that they gave them in that, like that's a moment that's very memorable to me in that film. And this is just going to kind of fade off into, was that part of the movie? Was that part of the TV show? And I think that that's where its lasting power makes it really fall down that list to me. That there is something I remember, something that hit me that I can recall in all of those other theatrical films, except for this one. And then, like I said, the Clone Wars animated movie is horrible, which is so upsetting because the show was actually quite good.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm going to take the cheap way out, because I can't even put this in with the original trilogy. I can't do, or the nine films. Like I can rank my nine films. I don't know where it would fall in that. Like I think that it feels like it ranks with the Star Wars stories, and it still might be the least in that. But I feel like this is a different film than anything that we've seen. Like it's not terrible. I stand by that. I do not do the pile on. I think that episode 9 and episode 2 are atrocious films. Episode 2 has a couple of moments. Episode 9 has a bunch of human garbage. I think it's just atrocious film. Um, but like I don't even feel like I can say I can't even compare it to that because it's so different.
But is that better or worse? Because
That's
to
what I
Nick's
mean. I
point,
don't know. I don't know how I would say
To
it.
Nick's point, I mean, in two, Yoda breaking out the lightsaber for the first time, awesome. Crap movie, but awesome moment. 8 and 9 still have strong moments.
9 has
This
nothing.
has no moments.
9 has no moments. Nine's a piece of garbage. Uh, it's atrocious filmmaking in all aspects. Love you, JJ. Bad movie. Um, that's what I mean. I actually don't know. Like, I don't feel like I can pit this against them because I don't know what I'd compare it to. I could almost compare it to the show, but I don't feel like I
That's
can
the
compare.
problem. That's the problem.
Okay, and that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I don't think that doesn't justify it as a film. I do think that I don't know. It's such a weird one. It'd be like starting the MCU again with Ant-Man. Um, it is. It's like, how do you fit it in here? Like but it didn't make me mad. And I came out of it thinking that I really did. I thought it was kind of beautiful, but that's a good question.
So that's my issue. Like you said, it didn't make you mad. Rise of Skywalker made me mad. This made me
Yeah.
not quite care. And this didn't get that. There are emotional moments in the film, but it didn't bring that emotion out of me. It's funny, what it actually did when we're ranking the films is Mandalorian and Grogu bettered my view on Solo. I appreciate Solo more now that I've seen Mando and Grogu because I didn't dislike Solo when I saw it, but I'm like, oh, this is the way that you can tell. This is the way that you can tell this kind of side story with these versions of characters that you don't quite understand, and it does work for the most part. And for me, like when I look back on this character, like we were talking about before about the characters in the franchise, the arc, there are multiple arcs in the television series that are better than this film.
And this is an art form that we all know well and love and can appreciate. But in the art of pro wrestling, what's the one thing that you don't want to have happen?
Be boring.
Silence.
Yeah.
And that's this movie. This is not the reaction one way or the other. This is like firmly in the middle going,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's a fair comparison. All
Yeah,
right.
Mando and Grogu is the Danhausen debut, but not Danhausen.
On that note, we need to ask the
The Rise
toughest
of
question of
Skywalker
all.
is the Danhausen debut. Everything after that is Empire of the Strikes Back, but that's another story.
On that note, we need to ask the toughest question of all. for a film like this. Mandalorian and Grogu, screen it or skip it. Is this the way?
Yes, but you don't have to rush. If you watch it in the theater, great. I think that's ideal because we all want, people should go to the cinemas more and support the cinemas. But, if you wait till it hits Disney Plus, I don't think you're going to lose out on the experience.
Nick?
I'm not going to say skip it. I'm going to say stream it instead of screen it.
That's
I
fair.
think, yeah, I think that there are a lot of better options that you can see in theaters than this film. But
I agreed on that, yeah.
I'm not going to hate on a Star Wars film that you should just take it out of ever seeing it. I think even with all the shows, you should at least see it because it's all part of a vaster universe, and they all
Yeah.
tend to serve each other in some way or another.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a screen it, but I admit that it's like, I mean, if you there are a lot of people not gonna like it. I liked it, but I know that this is not like, oh, we're back. Um, and there's gonna be a lot like this, just as divisive as these conversations. But I mean, I think it's a great Father's Day movie. I think it should do well Father's Day weekend. I really feel that. I was a dad. I was a dad. I am a dad. I have two kids. I was like, this is a good dad movie. It's good. Um, but yeah, it's not a. You don't have to rush out this weekend. But it is. Anyway, it was. It's fine.
If you're going to the movie theater on Father's Day, see if Omaha is still playing.
No, no. Omaha is great, but no, don't you dare.
That's a great movie, but yeah,
Yeah, no. Having said that, gentlemen, this has been so much fun. Thank you. It has been great to be back. Sell your wares. How can people find you?
Nick.
You can check us out at bitesizebreakdown.com. You can follow us on YouTube, where we do episodes called A Bigger Bite, where we do deeper dives into our reviews, and we try and get content up there as often as we can. So, yeah, please check it out.
And as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I am not only the brand over at InTheSeats for all latest and greatest in the world of film, television, basically moving at large. But also, I am the host and producer of our companion podcast, the audio-only experience In the Seats With, where I sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and I pick their brain, my current projects, state of the industry, and all that stuff and more, which is available on all major podcast providers, as well as our In the Seats YouTube channel. So go give us a like and subscribe, and click those thumbs up where you can, because it all matters.
I appreciate that. And as always, you can find us if you're listening to this, you found us. You can find us wherever podcasts are available, and certainly like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And where we have lots of interviews, almost right. We have been cranking them out the last 3 months in terms of interviews with industry professionals as they talk about their latest and current projects. And of course, you can also check out the website, screenfish.net, where you can find the latest in interviews and reviews to help try and get the conversation started where you are. And gentlemen, thank you again so much. We love the team at In the Seats. We love the team at Bite Size Breakdowns. I appreciate the chance to chat with you both. But for you at home, as always, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.